Okay, so I've finished with that introduction video. I should probably mention one or two more introductory points, but I'm sure you'll get those fun snippets throughout the semester. I guess the only other somewhat important introductory note is related to, so I mentioned that I'm currently teaching this course. Otherwise, I spend some time making AI smarter, especially at solving physics and math problems that are getting more and more complex. I'm doing a couple other things related to teaching Google employees how to code. I'm also teaching high schoolers how to code and do astrophysics projects. So you might find me on a tutoring platform, but note that I will not accept, and I generally do not accept any academic course tutoring anyway. That tutoring is really just for teaching people how to code, um, as well as for teaching astrophysics research projects. So for that tutoring, just keep in mind that I don't uh, accept that being a conflict of interest. And the good news is that then you don't have to pay for that. So, you get my time, as much time as I have available per my contract here. But you have my time for free. So take advantage of it. Okay. So, I'm going to start with a little overview of Brightspace, and I might break this into two videos to avoid it getting too long, or I might just try to hash this out since I'd like to get this done sooner than later. This is Pacific time, by the way. Okay, so first of all, here's Brightspace. And so note that in terms of, how you might find this, you would probably end up over here in your Brightspace home at first. And then I have a couple of courses here. You would have a lot more. Mine will look different than yours, of course, but you would click on Astro 100, or really 10,000, I guess. O2I, the I is for Internet. Descriptive, the solar system. DIS means it's distance learning, or in other words, again, it's an online class, it's not in person. This is for me to grade your submissions, so you wouldn't see that probably. All right, and then here we go. It starts out with the announcements. I'll be posting an announcement shortly after I finish this video and find a way to get it on Brightspace, which I've done before, but it's been a little while. Okay, and then most importantly, I would say, would be going to this content page. Now, this might look a little bit different for you all, or it should look somewhat different, I guess. But so over here, we have a table of contents page, and you can just kind of live more or less in this table of contents page. Um, but I think it's much better organizationally if you use these different modules that have their different pages. So this exam, I don't think is posted quite yet. I get very confused, unfortunately, with time zones since my computers have Pacific time zone, since that's where I'm from originally, even though even though everything here should be Eastern time, I think. So anyway, this will become available to you at some point today. I'm not sure when exactly, but either at 8:30 Eastern or maybe 8:30 Pacific, which is 11:30 Eastern. And so this exam is due in about a week. Uh, Go ahead and read the instructions, but again, this first exam is meant as a pretest. We also have a quizzes tab. Similarly, this first quiz will be available at some point tonight. It will be due in exactly 1 week. And for each virtual class session, which I'll be doing Tuesday, Thursdays, there will be 30 total virtual class sessions. You will have a corresponding quiz due 1 week after it. And those quizzes are partly so that I have a nice round number of points to assign, but also these quizzes will help you out to study for the exams. That's their main point, is to help you go over the material again and to prep you for the exams. But again, this first exam is like a pre-test basically. And I promote your two lowest scores on the exams as long as you take 4 out of 5 on time. So again, as long as you take your exams on time, this exam number one, even if you do poorly on it, it'll get promoted to full credit anyway. Okay. And then in week one, this should be everything kind of related to week one. I do mention the exam here because it's kind of, it's due start of week two slash kind of end of week one. It's a little confusing to myself anyway. You have your reading assignment, so there's the syllabus summary, and then there's also the course overview. The course overview is due Thursday. We might actually have a change in textbooks pretty soon. I just got all my paperwork today, so that's also partly why this video is getting posted not necessarily later than I expected, but later than I hoped. So you might, so OpenStax is okay, it's free. I have learned, or at least my current understanding, is that you all did pay a fee to enroll in this course, which involves using a textbook, a Pearson textbook. And I've used those Pearson textbooks before, and I think that they're actually better than OpenStax. I just didn't think that you all had access to it since I didn't request the Pearson textbook because I got, basically all this paperwork for my hiring came in super last minute. So in the future, we might actually use the Pearson textbook. So stay tuned on that. But this is still useful anyway. OpenStax still has some useful content. And then your astronomical journal entry, your first two entries are due at the end of this week, which I'm calling end of Monday, supposing that our virtual week kind of starts on Tuesdays. And I have some additional information in the instructions here, so read them over. These instructions supersede what's in the syllabus. I'll hopefully edit the syllabus pretty soon so that they match, but I might, adjust the instructions slightly between astronomical journal entries. So make sure you always pay careful attention to the instructions. In particular, if you're not submitting one document in PDF, that usually costs me time in grading, and I don't have a ton of time since this is part-time. I don't have a ton of time in terms of trying to keep under my hour cap. I'll probably end up, and this is okay, but I'll probably end up spending more time on this class than I'm theoretically supposed to according to my contract. But that kind of always happens with academic positions. And ultimately, I want to spend more time helping you all learn than grading for especially spending time grading on logistical issues that could be prevented. Okay, so that's a little overview, and then I have one more thing, which is related to your one of your other semester projects, this mock job application. This will also become available tonight, and it's due at the end of the month. And keep in mind, this should be a very, very rough draft. You'll basically be graded based on if you submit anything or not. And what you should be submitting is a resume or CV, a cover letter, and this is all copy pasted from the syllabus. So, with the addition of this note, that is. So you might want to look at the syllabus for possibly improved formatting. I don't know why Brightspace kind of struggles with this, but okay, so you should submit a resume or CV and a cover letter and a statement, which could be a personal statement or it could be a kind of mock research statement or a mock teaching statement or a mock DEI statement. Again, you're just submitting these to me. You're not necessarily applying to these jobs. I don't expect that a lot of you will necessarily want astronomy jobs, but I think it's interesting and useful for you all to recognize the breadth of astronomy jobs. Most of them are in academia, but to still see what those different jobs are. So if I take a look at the AAS job register, and I guess there we go, as far as using Brightspace. And so again, a lot of them are related to working in academia, from faculty positions to postdoc positions, take up probably most of this. But if I scroll down to the very bottom and then actually scroll up, then they have other, and they're kind of interesting positions here sometimes. These are a little bit boring, admittedly. Still mostly scientist positions, but I have occasionally seen in here or elsewhere director of telescopes, director of planetaria, and other like kind of more software positions. So a lot of kind of interesting stuff in here. And in terms of scientific technical staff, it looks like they also have something for James Webb right now. So it's just kind of interesting to see what's hiring. And again, I don't expect most of you to be wanting to apply to astronomy jobs necessarily, but in terms of developing these application materials, even if you have a full-time job now, maybe at some point you want to level up. And I've helped a lot of students at this point go to some pretty prestigious institutions, mostly academic institutions, but one of my students is working for Google now, which I think is interesting. Of course, that's kind of related to what I told you before of helping Google engineers learn how to code. Okay, so mock job application, we've taken a look at the first week, at quizzes, exams. Let's go ahead and talk through the syllabus right now. And you can download this thing. Again, you might have a bit of a different view, but there should be a download button right here. Also, I mean, you'll be downloading a PDF. If you don't have a PDF reader somehow, but you do have a Microsoft Word reader, which I guess would be like Google Docs, etc. Then if you go to the reading assignment, then I do provide, again, the syllabus in PDF and .docx format to view. Now for this, I think we'll just go, though, back to content and back to syllabus, though. Okay, so the main important things on the syllabus. I'm not going to cover this in detail. You have a quiz due next week that will test your reading of this material, as well as a little bit of extra information I include here. But speaking of which, okay, so first thing that's maybe additional information, but it's definitely included in the syllabus, is the best way to contact me would be to email me. Possibly also by office hours once I have those set, or again, you're free to by appointment. In other words, you can email me and ask to set up an office hour, especially if the office hours that I set don't work for everyone. Um, so the best way to contact me is by email. I don't have an office in Kettler Hall. A lot of you are not in Fort Wayne necessarily, so that's important. Now, in terms of what you'll be covering in this class, the solar system covers a very broad level of information. Humans have been studying the stars for thousands of years, and it is, I think, awe-inspiring, in fact, the steps that we have taken beyond our solar system, both by mankind ourselves in terms of going to the moon, and hopefully very soon going back to the moon with the Artemis missions, as well as the different robots and non-manned missions that we've sent to a plethora of objects from the moon to Mars, as well as certain missions that have grazed or orbited or flown by a very wide variety of objects, extending out to Pluto and Kuiper Belt objects. Now, in terms of what we'll be covering in this course in particular, we'll be starting with kind of a different approach to learning than you might be used to. We're going to be starting by going over on Thursday a really quick overview of what I consider the most important topics, and we'll be going pretty shallowly over those topics. We'll be doing basically three phases in this class. The initial phase is a very shallow overview. phase two will go a little bit deeper and we'll explore some additional topics that we don't have time for in that very, very shallow overview of the most important topics. Those extra topics are still important and useful, but I have to pick and choose which I consider are the most important topics to really try to drill into your brains or to impart upon you, especially since for many of you, this might be the only science class that you have in your entire bachelor's program. The third phase will be going even deeper on topics. So it's not like because we've covered the same topics two times before that you're going to be done at the end of the semester. Instead, phase three is really where we get to the fun stuff and where you get to a deeper level of understanding of each really piece of new material. Now, in terms of materials, this is possibly going to change for the textbook. At least for this week, we're going to use OpenStax. But as soon as I get some Brightspace help, probably from CELT, you should have free online access to a Pearson textbook. And if not, OpenStax is still, I think, quite good. But the Pearson textbook is a bit better, does go a bit deeper. You'll have access to mastering astronomy in that case, which gives you access to a lot of quizzes in case you really want to test your understanding before the exams. And it really covers a lot more material and at greater depth than what OpenStax does. The second material you'll need for this class is Stellarium. Now, this is a piece of software. You can get it from stellarium.org. I do recommend downloading Stellarium on a laptop or desktop. There is a version for Chromebooks, but at least in the past, that hasn't worked too well. I think they have a web version now too. It's also not great. I'm pretty sure they charge for their iPhone app, and I don't know that it's that good. If you want to use a iPhone app, there are probably a lot of other better options, but Stellarium, I think, is actually a better way to learn the sky because if you're going out and observing, anytime that you're looking at a screen is ruining your night vision, you want to do a little bit of studying up of where different constellations are, ideally in your house before you go observing. And if you do use your phone, then just make sure to turn it to the lowest brightness setting. Even better if you have a red light filter. If you don't have a physical red light filter, there is like night mode or some other third-party apps, not just for iPhone, but also for Android, of course, that can help. And then again, I'm not going to cover this syllabus in precise detail. I'm going to skip over this lab section. I'm going to skip over the course content, except to say that, again, with this three-phase approach, we're not going to be covering all this material in chronological order, but eventually you will learn kind of following human history, how ancient peoples studied the sky, both related to timekeeping as well as navigating the Earth. And this was really, really important in terms of navigating the globe eventually by the Norwegians and then again by the Spanish and Europeans. And well, not, and actually even before the Norwegians, probably the people in the Pacific, coming from Southeast Asia, etc. Anyway, we'll cover that at greater depth later in the course. We will move beyond ancient astronomy and talk about really the scientific revolution, a very admittedly European centric view, but really crucial in terms of our modern understanding of the solar system. And then in the later parts of the semester, um, rather the later segments of the course, but some of which will be introduced to you next class actually, we'll talk about what belongs in the solar system, or really what we've observed so far in the solar system, from different types of planets to satellites and comets, asteroids, very, very wide variety of objects we've observed in the solar system. And then my favorite topic, admittedly, again, my background is more of in galactic astrophysics. So my favorite topic, we unfortunately don't typically spend a ton of time on because there's so much to cover elsewhere with the solar system. But we'll talk about things such as the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, talk about the formation of our solar system, how we think that stellar systems in general form, and about the discovery and characterization of exoplanets. And for this, we'll be doing a couple of different activities. Um, and then go ahead and read over the learning objectives for yourself. You should read over the general education requirements. One thing important here is that you will learn quantitative reasoning from this course. That means even though this is called descriptive solar system, you will still have to do some math. I don't expect you all to have much to any background knowledge in math. You should be able to add, subtract, multiply, and divide, but otherwise, I will hopefully be conveying in enough information everything you need to know on the math side. And there won't be too much math, but some of the topics really do require just some ability to reason from graphs and to understand directly proportional and inversely proportional relationships. Okay, so skipping over the rest of the general education requirements, grading policy, here's a delineation of the grades. Um, Again, in terms of where your grades are coming from, this is also a bit of a different approach to classes than what you might be used to. Whereas for most classes, you immediately kind of know where you stand after the first exam or so, because you have just kind of some average that where that average you might try to bump up or the average might go down if you miss some assignments. For this class, everyone starts out at 0 points, and then you earn points by completing certain actions. You earn points for each reading assignment you complete. And it's zero point 0.5 points per reading assignment for a total of 15 points. You earn points by submitting your notes on PowerPoint presentations and by completing biweekly projects. For today, that's just going to be, there's no project. Today, it's just going to be submitting your response to 3 questions that I'll be posting related to this video. You'll have one quiz per virtual class, and these quizzes might be related to the reading assignment due for that virtual class session, but for the most part, the quizzes will be related to the PowerPoints or to again, these biweekly projects are really more of activities or worksheets that you'll be filling out. And in some cases, it could just be uh, for the biweekly projects, those could just be submitting notes. But usually there will be a little bit more than that. Okay, and then there's going to be 5 exams. They're each 5 points. So this is a pretty big fraction of your total grade, 25%. But keep in mind that as long as rather you complete 4 out of the 5 exams on time, I will boost your 2 lowest scores to full credit. So for exam number 1, again, you shouldn't stress about it too much. The reason why we have 5 exams, which is maybe more than you're used to, is that education research has shown that the approach of study, 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 test is much less effective than the approach of study, test, test, test. In other words, tests are useful in terms of triggering in the brain what information is important. So that's the reason also for this kind of pre-test is that when you are exposed to that information in the future, your brain will ideally think, oh, that was on the first exam. This must be important. And that is the intended purpose. Now, I guess one more thing about the quizzes I forgot to mention is that you will, in most cases, I think it should be all cases, but at least in most cases, have 3 attempts per quiz. So these quizzes are not purely formative, are not purely assessments. they're meant to prep you for the exam, so you can also learn, hopefully, from those quizzes. Now, occasionally, I might have the wrong answer in a quiz. So if you submit a quiz and you get marked down for something and you think that you have the right answer, then please email me before you submit your third and final response. And that way I can correct the auto grader. Okay. All right, and then in addition to the exams, there's also going to be three different projects throughout the course. Each one is 10%, so a total of 30% of your grade is related to these semester-long projects. Emphasis on semester-long. If you try to submit all of your astronomical journal entries in the last week, I'll only accept the last week. It's really kind of pointless because part of the point is to notice how the constellations are changing with time, to notice how the moon is changing with time. So you can't just do all of these in one day or even in one week. It really needs to be done throughout the semester. And in the case of, one bad week of weather, then okay, maybe you have to make up those measurements in the following week. But you should make sure to still submit in the week one, AJ1 plus 2, a screenshot that, hey, the weather was clouded out for you all this week. You intend to make it up in week 2. All right, and then I list different sources here. Again, the syllabus, I need to update it actually already because in week 1, AJ1 plus 2, I have updated this target list specifically for students that are in like the heart of cities. Now, so far, students have only let me know that they're in the heart of cities that, in my opinion, are not as bad as being like in the middle of Times Square. You should ideally be able to find, a soccer field or a park. Even in Detroit, where I was closer to for grad school, I got lost in Detroit, actually. I got lost in Boston when I was in undergrad too. And I was able to find my way to the BART station in Boston. And I was able to find my way back to my car in Detroit by using just a couple of the stars that I was able to see. So again, this is kind of a useful skill, or it at least can be. One more point related to this, which I did want to point out, especially because it's very, very timely for this week, but I'll try to mention this on in the Thursday recording too, is that we have actually right now a once in a lifetime opportunity available to us. What's called T Coronae Borealis. This is a special star that usually we cannot see. We think that once every 80 to 85 years, there is a nova that happens. In other words, an explosion on the surface of a white dwarf. And I want to just share, there's a couple different articles here, but let's go to the BCC one. And this BCC, okay, so maybe very America-centric. British BCC, say UK, I guess. Here we go. And this is probably the article that I'm looking for. So there is someone from like 80, 85 years ago who's, I guess, in his 90s now that observed this when he was a 10-ish year old kid or very young teenager. And he wrote to the Astronomer Royal because this was a British person. And so this person is hopefully going to be the second person ever, or the first person ever rather, to have seen this rare event for the second time. So that's the thing is, so this person, I guess, was 15 years old in 1946 and saw an event that no one else had seen before. So for your astronomical journal, who knows? Maybe you'll be one of the very first people to notice a supernova. And if you report that to we don't really have an American Royal astronomer, because we're not British. We don't have a monarchy, etc. But we do have what's called the AAVSO, the American Association for Variable Star Observers. And you could contact them and say, hey, I saw something strange. Do you know what this is? And you can even get published with them, which I think is pretty cool. But again, that's going a bit beyond where you have to go. But if you're interested in this sort of thing, that's where this project could go. Okay, so back to the syllabus. So first project is Astronomical Journal. I know this video is getting kind of long, so I'm going to gloss over the rest of this. Main thing is that there is some updates, not in the syllabus right now, but hopefully will get updated soon. But some updates in your week 1 AJ 1+2 assignment to include some brighter objects, basically, in case you are in the middle of a city. But even if you are in the middle of a city, I think you should be able to see Mizar. I was able to see that in downtown Boston and downtown Detroit. Admittedly, the skies just get brighter with time. We will have one class where we talk about light pollution and the problems it has, which are much more dire, arguably, than for astronomy, but related to human health and related to the health of sea turtles, other ecological reasons. So that's kind of getting ahead. Aside from your journal entries, your other 2 semester-long projects are: one, you're going to have a mock job application, mock job slash internship application that will include at minimum a resume or CV, a cover letter, and a statement. And the purpose of this mock job application, I don't really expect most of you to be applying for jobs in astronomy, but the purpose is so that if at some point in the future, whether you're not employed right now, but trying to finish a bachelor's to apply to jobs, or whether you have a full-time position now, who knows, maybe at some point in the future, you want to mix it up, you want to move locations and therefore switch jobs. You hate your boss and you want to switch jobs, or you just want to be paid more. I've helped a lot of people go maybe not a lot of people, but at least a few to maybe a dozen people now really increase their ability, increase their wage earning ability, I should say. Excuse me, I don't technically have a speech impediment, although I do mix words up occasionally. But so you'll just have to bear with me. Okay. All right, so this mock job application, your first deadline, again, is at the end of the month. Is meant to be a very, very, very rough draft. As long as you submit something, you'll get credit for it. But the better job you do, the better feedback from your peers you can get. And so I don't have this again in the syllabus, but part of these 10 points will be doing the peer feedback process, actually. All right, and then third set of 10 points is to basically do your own presentation, similar to how I'll be doing virtual class presentations throughout the course. You will do your own presentation to basically assess your understanding of a NASA mission to one solar system object. So this is basically the replacement of a term paper. AI has made doing writing assignments kind of pointless. Pretty soon they'll also be good enough to fake video, but right now they're not really good at that, especially for longer videos. And I probably will have to downgrade this just because there's 40 of you right now. And again, I'm not supposed to work like more than 6 hours per week or so. So I don't think I'll actually be able to have a 15-minute lecture. That would probably be better for assessing your understanding. But I think, unfortunately, I'll have to downgrade this to 5 or maybe even 3 minutes, but hopefully at least 5 minutes. Okay, and then for this kind of like final project, this is still a semester-long project. Now, I only have a single check-in point for this one because there's enough going on otherwise, I think. So the main thing is that you're going to have to submit your initial attempt by week 8. And the point there is to hopefully level up your presentation skills, which would be useful if you get interviewed for a job, or useful for when you're communicating about what you learned to your spouse or partner or child or parent. Um, Being able to present more effectively is useful for a broad variety of reasons. And then last thing is that all assignments should be due at their scheduled time for this first week. I'll try to be flexible, especially if you email me in advance of a deadline. Some folks are going to be adding late though, so for this first week, I have to be a little bit more flexible. But after that, again, my time is very, very limited. So if you submit something after I've graded, I probably won't grade it. Maybe I will, no promises there, but probably I won't. And if you submit something late, I try to grade stuff pretty quickly usually. This semester is going to be a new challenge for me, so we'll see. But usually I try to grade things really pretty quickly. So I don't like having late submissions. I like to be able to grade as soon as something is due. Usually I won't grade as soon as something is due. And if you're really close, if you're off by a few minutes, I won't ding you the 20%. But if you're off by, the next day or a few days, then, and I haven't graded by then, you definitely will get that 20% penalty. Okay. And then in terms of AI, you will have to use AI for certain projects. This is also related to this quiz. I guess I think should be contained within the syllabus, but maybe extra information here is that you will have to use generative AI for certain assignments. You should not use generative AI for your exams or for your quizzes. For your quizzes, I don't really care if you use generative AI for attempt number 3. It's not really these quizzes are meant to be a learning opportunity, not meant to be punitive, but you should not use AI for your exams. And in the future, I'm probably going to have to, I don't know, I'll probably have to move away from exams since AI is already getting pretty fast. But part of the purpose of the time limit is to try to avoid the use of AI, or at least the efficacy of AI for the exams. Anyway, for a lot of your reading assignments, a lot for your astronomical journals, you will have to use AI, but make sure you pay attention to the instructions in the particular assignment as far as how to use that AI. So for the reading assignment number 1 related to the syllabus, you're tasked to use AI to suggest improvements to your original summary. And in the future, I might ask you to take screenshots of the prompts that you use, especially if it seems like if it's not clear that students are actually using AI, which I've already seen one questionable instance so far. Now, the idea is that you're not just going to learn astronomy, but I really think that AI is really like the new encyclopedia or the new Google. It's just a really useful tool. Everyone will need to be able to use it. And so I think that getting some practice through this course is handy. And this is the way that I make it more impossible for people to cheat. I had cases where I didn't have the forced usage of AI in the past, and then students used AI for some of the reading assignments, and it was pretty obvious. And I don't like to fail students. I don't like to have these repercussions that can be pretty serious. So I want to try to avoid that as best I can. And the way that I've come up with avoiding that here is by actually requiring the use of AI. And also, the benefit is that in past courses, I tried to give detailed writing feedback. And fortunately, even in past courses, there are just so many of you that I don't have as much time as I'd like for giving detailed writing feedback. The plus side is that AI does a decent job. I consider it to be still not the best. AI is really just an average in a certain sense, but AI does a pretty good job of professional writing, and AI can improve a lot of student writing at the very least, even if not reaching the highest echelons of writing ability. Okay, and then I'm going to gloss over the rest of the syllabus. If you have an accommodation, please do pass that information on as soon as you can related to extra exam time. And I think that the rest of this is pretty self-explanatory. There are some additional policies and documents to check out. And I think for most part, this should be common sense. But the main thing is that if you know that you're going to miss some classes, please reach out as soon as you can. And okay, so this video is probably pretty long at this point. We'll be on Thursday, and it's not necessarily Thursday morning, keep in mind. It's just going to be at some point on Thursday. You will have access to another video recording that will, and I'll also include some PowerPoint slides to give you all a course overview. Okay, so again, nice to meet all of you. I'm looking forward to actually meeting some of you virtually through office hours. And I hope that you all have a great rest of your night. If it's clear, maybe go and get a crack on your first astronomical journal entry. Oh, one important thing about that, which I hope is clear enough from the syllabus and assignment, but in case it's not, I did want to mention this. Um, so for this target list, you do not need to observe every single bullet point, every observing session. The idea is to kind of do a mixture of these. So you should be doing 8 measurements of the moon across your full semester. So you're required to do 30 observations. In other words, I should really say 30 nights or mornings for that matter if you're an early bird, but 30 different days of observations. And for the moon, it doesn't make sense to do more than one measurement per phase, really. So you're of these 30 observations, at most 8 should be the moon. So in other words, you still have another 22 to do aside from the moon. And I give a variety of different options here. Okay, so you do not need to do every observing session, both the moon and Polaris and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so that again, that's all for today. Take care, and I look forward to chatting with you more on Thursday. All right, bye.